Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hyden. Taking a look at today's 14-game slate on FanDuel and DraftKings. Really good slate. A lot of pitching options, a lot of good offenses, and pretty minor weather concerns at the moment.
Yeah, just a couple games that we're going to have to keep an eye on as far as weather, but everything looks like it should be fairly clear. There's not a bunch of games with like 40-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. And yeah, big slate, a lot of offenses to target, and some very interesting pitching options on the board.
Yeah, in this first game here, not pitching options that I'm interested in. We'll get into those later. You got Mike Fiers taking on Chris Tillman, one of the higher scoring implied totals on the night. I definitely like both offenses here, and I think you're going to get. I don't know. You probably get Tigers at not horrible ownership here tonight.
That's kind of where I'm leaning. Like, I don't necessarily think they're going to be popular options, and they're one of the stacks that made it into my stacking article today. I love the Tigers in the spot. This team is coming into this game. They're all like on fire. I think it was Candelario and Leonis Martin both hit homers yesterday and in one of the first part of the or 2 days ago in their doubleheader. A lot of bats to really like against Chris Tillman, who is fighting for his job, which is saying something considering there's like nobody behind him to take his job.
Well, it's funny. I saw a tweet that the guy the Baltimore Ravens drafted, he used to play baseball, and he said he was the best pitcher in Baltimore.
He very well might be, but he did actually used to play baseball, but he got a case of the yips and just could never get over it, and that ruined his baseball career.
Happens. Tillman, obviously, just been off against both sides of the plate this year. Lefties, 51% hard contact rate off them. I'm going back to the well with some of these main guys. Like, you got Leonis Martin and Candelario. If I think he's questionable actually for tonight's game, but if he's in the lineup, I like him a lot.
Yeah, Leonis Martin's a guy that I absolutely love here. I mean, this season, like if you eliminate the numbers last year, like I don't necessarily buy that he's the hitter he is this year, but also I don't buy that he's the hitter he was last year. But this year, 196 ISO, 399 WOBA, 397 on base percentage against righties this year. Love this spot for him, especially in that park. Definitely enough power to drive one out. Then you have Candelario, as you mentioned, matches up extremely well against Tillman's pitch types. He's been on fire this season and coming into this game. So I love those guys. And Castellanos is a guy probably going to be batting cleanup again. I do love him in the spot. Not necessarily one of my primary targets, but he does have enough power to punish Tillman here.
Yeah, he does. Like, it's weird because you got Candelario and Martin who kind of pop out to people, but you look at like Cabrera and Castellanos and even like Victor Martinez, all kind of underperforming, what they're expected to do this year. So I think you can get some lower exposure on those guys. Well, the one thing I noticed about Cabrera this year is 65% ground ball rate.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird that he's doing that. I wonder if it's something that he's doing to kind of alleviate the pressure on his back, because he did come into the season with that ailing back, and I mean he's old, so like that could be something to do with it. But it's still a spot for him. I mean, he's still posting 185 ISO and 386 WOBA against righties this season. I don't hate the spot for him. Martinez, I think John Hicks is interesting as a catcher option if he's the one that gets in the lineup, but. Like, I think I actually put in the cheat sheets today. Chris Tillman sucks so bad that even James McCann has value here. So, like, any of those guys are in play. And even Dixon Machado down at the bottom of the lineup still continues to mash the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, he does. I like these guys a lot here. Baltimore side of things against Fiers. Definitely don't mind getting some exposure here, but I'm not completely in love with it. Like, there aren't a lot of names that I'm really going after in this Baltimore team despite the matchup.
You mean, Chance Cisco isn't one of your top targets of the night?
No. Even though if he hits second again, I don't hate it.
Yeah, he's interesting at his price if he hits second. He is a guy, like, I know Fiers is not like a nasty strikeout pitcher, but Cisco is a guy with like almost 36% strikeout rate dating back to last season. He's fine in this spot. I think Manny Machado is probably the top target, of course. He's still one of the best hitters in baseball. 215 ISO, 341 WOBA dating back to last season against righties. I don't necessarily hate Mancini either. I mean, Fiers has given up 1.7 homers per nine to righties dating back to last year. Even Chris Davis, who is apparently just not good at baseball anymore, has some value against Fiers.
It definitely does. I mean, the power's still there. I kind of like Adam Jones as well in this spot.
Yeah, he's definitely interesting, especially at that price. Like down at 3,800, that's a very solid price for him.
Yeah, and clean up. But yeah, outside of that, I'm not too thrilled. It's a 14 game slate. I don't need to take a lot of chances on some of these guys.
Yeah, the Orioles are a team that's going to let you down more often than not. So I don't necessarily think stacking them is the greatest ideas. But if you're really just wanting to be completely contrarian, I think you can use some of these bats.
Yep. Atlanta and Philly, Julio Teheran versus Aaron Nola. This is like the sixth time they faced each other. I feel like we talked about this situation like numerous times already.
I feel like these teams have faced off a lot because they have, and this is now the third time around for Tehran and for Nola. I don't understand the price on Nola. I don't. Like, I know he was really good last time out, but this is a Braves team that he just has not been able to do it against this season. I'm not touching him. Like, the Braves still don't strike out a lot. Now they have Acuna in that lineup. There's a lot of pop. I'm not going near Nola. Like, I wrote up Tehran as a decent GPP option, and I think if he can continue to defy his splits that he's exhibited for like his entire career, he can have some success here. He is a very cheap option on DraftKings that I don't necessarily think you should overlook in tournaments.
I don't think, I mean, 6,500. I mean, really, outside the first start against Philly, we struggled a little bit at home, but bounced back in that second one. Yeah, I don't mind him. There is some strikeout upside at that price. Has pitched well in his last 3 games. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I'm kind of done taking some Phillies against him here because I've done it already this year 3 times and it's failed. So might as well go on the other side of it.
I mean, yeah, that's one way you can do it. I mean, I don't mind some of these Phillies bats. Obviously, Reese Lightning is still excellent option here. You have Carlos Santana, who is going to break out. It's going to happen.
He hit a ball that hit the top of the wall yesterday.
I know, I saw it, and like I was just like, oh my god, this dude could not get any more freaking unlucky. Like it's impossible. Like there is no way he can get any more unlucky than he has been this season. He's a fine option. I don't hate Cesar Hernandez, Nick Williams. Odubel is a guy that continues to punish the Braves almost every single time he faces them. I don't hate that. I don't hate, those guys in this spot.
No, I don't either. I mean, most of those outside of Hoskins and Hernandez below 4K. I don't mind like the Nick Williams just giving the power against right-handers for 3K on DraftKings. Like there is upside in this ballpark too, and they're definitely more one-offs here.
Yeah, for sure.
So, were you interested in any Braves or Braves hitters here?
Freddie Freeman's interesting. He's obviously really good against right-handed pitching, 277 ISO dating back to last season, low strikeout rate, does have some BVP against Nola. I don't hate Suzuki if you need a catcher with some power, but 3,700 on DraftKings is a little tough to stomach. Obviously, Acuna, Albies, these guys are in play if you're dying to stack against Nola, but like I'm not necessarily dying to stack against Nola.
No, I agree. Arizona, Washington, Zach Godley versus Steven Strasburg. Definitely a game I'm more intrigued with the pitchers than I am the hitters here.
Same. I think both these pitchers have value. Obviously, the Diamondbacks have been a team that is striking out a lot this season. They do have some, sluggers in their lineup with Alex Avila and Gerard Dyson, and that is very, very concerning whenever you look at Steven Strasburg. But like I think Strasburg is one of the top arms on the slate, obviously. And on the flip side, like I think Godley might be in play against this Nationals lineup that is striking out a decent amount, 21% of the time. But he does a good job of limiting hard contact on both sides of the plate. And I think lefties and righties against him have like a sub 290 WOBA.
Yeah, I mean, he's been excellent, like especially against left-handers. 238 WOBA allowed this year. He's not allowing a ton of power, strikeout rate, 83% ground ball rate against lefties. Yeah, I like Godley in this spot here. I think he's in a good spot for a quality start. I don't really have a ton of interest in any of the Washington bats. You obviously can use like a Harper if Matt Adams cracks lamp. I don't hate it, even though I just said Godley's been electric against lefties. But given their power, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bryce Harper, one of the best hitters in baseball. He's always in consideration. He's a guy like a lot of pitchers fear, so he does have the potential to walk several times in this outing, which is free points if you want to do that. You mentioned Matt Adams, a guy with a lot of power against right-handed pitching. Andrew Stevenson, whose numbers dating back to last season are absolutely atrocious. He's been in the lineup a couple times recently and has been putting up some solid numbers. I don't hate him as a value play. And of course, Trey Turner, you have the stolen base potential with him.
Yeah, he's finally starting to heat up a little bit too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think Strasburg's kind of DeGrom's my number one here tonight. And I'm kind of looking at Strasburg as a secondary option, even with like Kluber and Severino here, just because I think Strasburg and DeGrom draw the better matchups of the elite arms going tonight. But, we were looking a little bit at Strasburg before the show. I mean, 208 ISO allowed to lefties so far this year. But, I mean, there isn't a lot to indicate why he's struggling so much against lefties. I mean, still 26% soft contact rate, like average distance and exit velocity is still below average. Like, I don't know if he's just kind of getting lucky with some of these stuff, but I mean, obviously his xFIP still says otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his pitches, like it seems like it's his two-seam fastball that he's not throwing it very often, but lefties have a 750 ISO and a 637 xWOBA against it. And so it could just be a situation where the times that he is throwing it, people are just jumping on board with it, and that's what's really doing it. But if he continues to, throw it less than 5% of the time, like I'm okay with the risk here. His four-seamer, I guess it looks like a 310 ISO allowed, a 486 xWOBA allowed. Not great, but like again, it's a situation where I don't necessarily think that's going to continue because the numbers last year for it were significantly better.
Yeah, and look at this Arizona team. Like, I don't want to say because they don't have a lot of power from the left side, but that means Jared Dyson's going to probably come up and hit a third homer this season. But they really don't have a lot of power from the left side. I mean, this year, 141 ISO from the guys that are projected as lefties in their lineup. Like he should be fine against the majority of the right-handed bats, so I'm not really worried here. Strasburg, he's playable in all formats for me, but I still like DeGrom much more.
Yeah, I mean there are a couple guys that posted some decent power numbers against the velocity of fastball that he throws. I mean you have Alex Avila last season at 234 ISO. You had David Peralta at 200 ISO. A couple of those guys are a little bit concerning, but like those guys like Avila also strikes out a ton, so I'm not necessarily concerned about him.
No. Were you taking shots with anyone here on Arizona?
Maybe like a Ketel Marte or something like that. What's his price? I'm sure he's still pretty cheap. Yeah, $3K on DraftKings. Ketel Marte at that price, I'd take a shot on, even if I am interested in Strasburg.
St. Louis and Pittsburgh next year. I don't have any interest in the pitchers, but I love this Cardinals side once again against the lefty.
Hot take here, like I love the Cardinals side, but the more I dig into it, I'm starting to like the Pirates side maybe just a little bit more. I obviously don't have any interest in the pitchers here, but like the reason why I'm really high on the Pirates side of this game is Mikolas has been really bad against lefties, a 43.2% hard contact, 326 WOBA allowed, 1.42 homers per nine. We know this is a Pirates lineup that can get left-handed heavy. And there are some lefty power bats in there. You have Gregory Polanco, you have Josh Bell, you have Corey Dickerson, you have Colin Moran that can kind of punish Mikolas. And then if you get to that bullpen, their bullpen is pretty bad against lefties too. And like the Cardinals, which I wrote in the stacking article, are going to be a great option. But like if you want to get contrarian, I think the Pittsburgh lefties, especially someone like Corey Dickerson, could be a great contrarian option.
Yeah, I don't mind the lefties here. It's just the problem is it's throwing a ton of junk. Like 40% of his pitches this year are sliders and curveballs. None of these guys like tremendously stand out against it. I mean, outside of like maybe Josh Bell.
Yeah, Bell's a guy that I profiled in the cheat sheets a little bit in this spot, but I mean, even his four seam fastball, I mean, to lefties this season, 474 ISO allowed, 446 xWOBA. That's a pitch that Dickerson absolutely crushes. I mean, he posted a 444 ISO against it last season. So, like I said, I love Bell. I love Dickerson. Colin Moran down towards the bottom of that order is very interesting as well. He's posting like a 41% hard hit or hard contact to right-handed pitching dating back to last year.
Yeah, he's been really solid. And all these guys do make solid contact. I mean, there isn't a bat projected in there under 75%.
Yeah, and even like Adam Frazier, if he gets in like the leadoff spot, a 374 xWOBA against four seamers dating back to last year.
Yeah, and you get those guys all low ownership.
Yeah, and most of them, I mean, their prices aren't bad. Like Polanco's 3,600, Josh Bell 3,300, like Colin Moran on DraftKings 3,100. It's a very very cheap stack.
Yeah. On the Cardinals side here, you got Brault, who's 12% strikeout rate against righties this year, average distance 212, hard contact rate 43%. Sign me up for some of these bats here again. Like, I don't care about the downgrade in park. Like, I like these Cardinals bats, and I think they've been somewhat shocked the last few days just because of kind of what the slates have been on. But you're going to get guys like Pham and Martinez, I think, a little bit lower ownership on a 14-gamer.
Yeah, I mean, they made it in my stacking article. Obviously, Tommy Pham topped that lineup, 255 ISO, 427 WOBA against left-handed pitching dating back to last year. Dude's just been phenomenal this season. I love him in the spots. I mean, he has a 375 ISO against one of Brault's pitches. Great spot for him. Jose Martinez, the regression has not come yet. For those of you that seem to think it's going to come, it hasn't happened yet. Dude's still putting up monster numbers. Posted a 333 ISO against sliders. It's not a pitch that Brault is throwing a ton, but he is throwing it a little bit more to right-handed hitters. Excellent spot. Harrison Bader, if he gets in the lineup, I love him here as a value option. My dude Jed Jerko, lefty masher. He's gonna come. He's gonna be at the bottom of the lineup. Great spot for him too.
Yep, I completely agree. Yadier Molina, another one, 280 ISO off lefties dating back to last year. He's only 3,800. He'd be the guy, I think you mentioned Suzuki. I'd rather just use like Molina.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at it, I mean, he posted a 464 xWOBA against four seam fastballs last year. It's a good spot for him.
Yeah, definitely is. I think the only guys I'm off of are just I'm going to take a wait and see approach on Ozuna from now on against lefties. I don't know what's up with him now.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, he's still an option to look at if you're wanting to get an exposure to a guy in that cleanup spot. Like, I still think I'd rather go with like DeYoung, Bader, Pham, and the other guys that we mentioned over Ozuna. But if you're dying to get exposure there, you can.
Yep. Texas, Toronto, Marcus Stroman taking on Mike Minor. Both these pitchers really, really cheap on DraftKings. I'm going to let you talk about Minor a little bit here because he's a guy that you have some interest in GPPs.
It comes down to price and matchup. Like, I know the Blue Jays are heating up. I know they just got to Chris Sale, but they're still a team striking out 23% of the time against lefties, 85 WRC plus, 300 WOBA against them this season. And they're really bad against sliders, which is a pitch that Mike Minor is throwing a lot to right-handed hitters. He's 5,900. The dude's posted a 27.5% strikeout rate dating back to last season. I mean, he's good against right-handed hitters. I mean, less than 30% hard contact allowed, 293 WOBA allowed, 24% strikeout rate to righties. Not really giving it up to lefties either. I mean, 35% hard contact to him, but a 205 WOBA allowed, a 35% strikeout rate dating back to last season. He's 5,900. This is a matchup we've seen him perform really well in. And if I recall correctly, that series against the Blue Jays took place in Texas whenever the wind was blowing out like every single night. And he still managed to, strike out 7, only gave up 1 earn. 5,900 on DraftKings. I think he's viable in all formats.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind it. Like, you can pay up for a stud, use Minor in your secondary spot. I'm not really worried. I think my favorite bat from the Toronto side is Solarte. 304 ISO against lefties, and he's the only one who just doesn't absolutely suck against sliders. He's not great, but he doesn't suck like the rest of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to be concerned about a couple of these bats. Justin Smoke, still a great hitter. Devin Travis, probably going to get up, and
Pierce.
yeah, Pierce up there at the top. But I still think he's one of the top pitchers on the slate in that 5,900. I love the spot for him.
Yeah, definitely don't mind it. Other side of things here, Marcus Stroman, just hasn't been great this year. Usually a guy that I don't mind. Like the ground ball rate's still there, but I think he can have a decent outing. I just don't know if I'm going to go there here tonight.
If there were more right-handed hitters in that Texas lineup, I would definitely be off of Stroman in the spot, because it is righties that have really punished him. 332 WOBA allowed, 1.47 homers per nine, dating back to last season. There's just so many lefties there. I mean, he's been good against left-handed hitters dating back to last year. Outside of Robinson Chirinos and Delino DeShields and Isaiah Kiner Falefa, like this lineup is projected to be a lot of right-handed hitters, or a lot of left-handed hitters. He's 6,700. You pointed that out. Like, I don't necessarily think he's a terrible option in tournaments. I don't have a lot of interest in the Texas guys outside of the right-handers that we mentioned. Robinson Chirinos is dirt cheap on DraftKings at 2,900. I love him as a value catcher option. That'd be about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Chirinos is the only guy that I have interest in because of the price, and obviously he does. I mean, mash righties too. Like he's got some big time power. Um, yeah, I think Stroman's recent form is just kind of what's really throwing me off more than the long term stuff.
Yeah, he has not been good this season. He's really struggled with his command. He's walked 14 batters over 20 innings. 8.55 ERA. Unfortunately, when you're walking that many guys and you struggle with home runs to righties, like that's going to be a problem. You're going to be issuing a bunch of free passes, and then a righty is going to come up and drive them all home. So it is concerning. Like I said, in tournaments, you can probably roll him out, but like in cash games, I would just rather roll out someone else like Mike Minor.
Yeah, I would too. He's just on way too many base runners for me right now, and it hasn't shown the strikeout upside to like balance it out at all.
Exactly.
So, moving on, Seattle and Cleveland. You got Corey Kluber taking on Rosmer Ramirez. Corey Kluber, obviously a guy you could use tonight. I just still find myself going to DeGrom everywhere.
I think I'm probably leaning DeGrom as well. But I do love this spot for Kluber. Like, there's not a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. I mean, 22% this season. Some of them do struggle against curveballs. I mean, there's about 5 hitters projected in that lineup with a 15% swinging strike rate against curveballs, a decent amount that struggle against sinkers. I think he's one of the safest options on the board. Like the crowd is going to be talking about home road splits for one of these high dollar pitchers. I don't necessarily buy into it, but like if you are one person that does, like I think Kluber is the obvious pivot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think when you look at it, like he's been very solid against lefties. Dating back to last year, 31% strikeout rates. It's just he's so filthy. Like we've seen the Mariners strike out, at times against elite strikeout guys. We saw McCullers, put up big strikeout numbers. And Kluber, I think, had 8 strikeouts last time these two faced was opening day. I mean, posted 28 DK points on the road at Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, the potential is definitely there for him to have another huge game, and I mean, he is just a filthy, filthy, filthy pitcher.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in Seattle bats. Do you?
Nope, all in on Cleveland. I am now a Cleveland fan, unfortunately. Like I have to cheer for all Cleveland sports. It's a sad day that I have to become a Cleveland fan.
Yeah, but I am excited. I'm really pulling for Mayfield here. Like I would love to see him be the guy who turns that franchise around.
It would be awesome, and I think that the funniest part is the irony that's all the people that hated Baker Mayfield for planting the flag, the Ohio State fans that just talked endless amounts of crap against him, now have to cheer for him because they're fans of the Browns. So
yeah,
karma is bitch.
But back to these Indians bats. I'm with you here. Like a lot of these guys, I mean, dating back to last year, you look at Ramirez, did struggle a lot with lefties. 242 ISO allowed, 45% hard contact rate. This is not the lineup to have those type of numbers against.
No, it is not, because there are a lot of lefties that can punish Erasmo here. That starts with Jose Ramirez. Great spot for him. I mean, 280 ISO, 397 WOBA against righties dating back to last season. He's obliterated two-seam fastballs in his career. I love this spot for him. Jason Kipnis is a guy not necessarily known for his power. I mean, a 167 ISO, 286 WOBA against right-handed pitching doesn't really jump off the page, but last season, a 630 ISO against two-seam fastballs. That's pretty impressive. I love Jason Kipnis in the spot as a guy that's probably going to go overlooked in a Cleveland stack.
I think so, because I think people are sick of playing him. And he's 3,400. He's cheap. You have a lot of these Cleveland bats I think are underpriced outside of Ramirez and Lindor. Like, I don't mind the first base options. I think I prefer Alonso, just given he got the lefty numbers against him, and he's 3,800. He's cruising right now. He's had a couple homers of late.
Yeah, 400 ISO last season against two-seam fastballs. Guy already has a ton of power, 234 ISO, 375 WOBA against right-handed pitching. I love the spot for him. Michael Brantley in that cleanup spot. Obviously can't go wrong with him there. One guy down at the bottom of the lineup that I really like is Bradley Zimmer. Only a 294 WOBA and 147 ISO against right-handed pitching, but he posted a 429 ISO against cutters last season. And let me pull up Erasmo's numbers one more time. He throws that cutter to lefties a decent amount, yeah. So I like him here too.
Yeah, I do too. So stack them up using this one-offs. They're definitely one of the top offenses.
Yeah, they really are. And I don't know if they're going to be popular because, I think people are going to go with another really chalky stack that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah. Colorado, Miami, Jose Urena versus Tyler Anderson. This is one of the most meh games on the slate.
It really is. And if this was in Coors, I would be all about it. There are some bats that I do like from this game. I definitely don't really have interest in the pitchers, though. That's for darn sure.
No, I don't either. Anderson had that one really good stretch, which seems like it's now 5 years ago, and he's been awful ever since. I don't mind some of the bats here. I don't mind JT Realmuto. He's 4K, but he's just he gets lost a little bit for me in a couple other spots. You have Trinos, who's $1,000 cheaper. You have Yachty, who's, a little bit right there. But Realmuto's been crushing since coming back off the DL.
Yeah, he has. And Anderson's a guy at 358 WOBA allowed to righties dating back to last season, 1.44 homers per 9. So, I do like Realmuto. I kind of like Starlin Castro in this spot as well. Maybe some Brian Anderson. Both those guys cheap and going to go overlooked for sure. I think Brian Anderson's probably the most interesting guy from that bunch. Doesn't sport a lot of power, but a 365 on-base percentage and a 360 WOBA against lefties dating back to last season. Decent spot for a value third baseman.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind it. I like the Castro call. 14 WOBA off changeups, which Anderson's throwing 20% of the time. And then you got who is it? Never mind. No one else here.
Nothing to see here. Carry on.
No, carry on. Yeah. Colorado side of things here. Look at Urena. I don't know if I have a ton of interest in these Colorado bats. I don't feel like paying up for their superstars like Stud or Arenado or Blackman. Jeez, I'm losing it here.
I mean, Urena has struggled with lefties dating back to last year. 326 WOBA allowed, 1.41 homers per 9, 36.3% hard contact. Charlie Blackman, obviously a great option in the spot if you want to roll him out, but I don't want to pay $5,300 for him whenever I can get Stanton for $5,100. I can get Castellanos, Brantley, Pham, a lot of other guys for cheaper.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. It depends what other lefty outfielders get in the lineup. I think Parra is due back from a suspension, but if David Dahl's up there in the lineup, I'll have some interest in him. I mean, he is 3,800 on DK, 3,600.
Yeah, Parra does not need to be in the lineup. Just don't play him anymore. Just stop putting him in the lineup. Just put David Dahl in there all the time.
The problem is Colorado finds the worst bats to put in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in this game.
No, I don't either.
Tampa and Boston, two lefties on the hill. You got Drew Pomeranz taking on Blake Snell. Let's get this out of the way. Xander Bogaerts is 2K on FanDuel.
Yeah, free square for the day.
Just if you want to find guys that are on the DL and going to be playing like a day after, and then they'll be in because Rizzo was 2K, Eugenio Suarez was 2K, and now Bogaerts is 2K.
I don't understand how they can continue to have issues like this. Just pay attention to the news, and you'll see when these guys are supposed to come back, and you can bump their prices up,
or just keep them the same,
or just don't bump their prices down.
Yeah. Let's start with this Boston side. Blake Snell obviously hasn't been bad, but I'm still going to be looking at some of the righties here, like a JD Martinez. Rafael Devers is interesting too in a GPP play.
I mean, it's hard not to look at some of these guys with some of the numbers they put up against lefties. Obviously, JD Martinez, 445 ISO against lefties dating back to last season. If you want to roll him out, feel free. Like, I'm not dying to stack against Blake Snell, but like JD Martinez at 4K on FanDuel is a little bit interesting. He's 4,800 on DraftKings. Not as interested there. And obviously, Mookie Betts is still really good at hitting baseballs. Like, it seems like he's just gonna double down like almost every freaking game now. Great spot for him. You mentioned Devers. I don't hate that call. Brock Holt's a guy that I've been using a lot lately, and he's decent against lefties. What is it? 370 WOBA dating back to last year, 447 on base percentage. I know he's listed as day to day, but he's a guy that just continues to put up numbers at the bottom of that order, and he's gonna continue to go overlooked, and he's still really cheap.
Yeah, I like that call if he's in the lab. And the 7-8-9 hitters in Boston are like completely different from 7-8-9 hitters elsewhere.
Yeah, they're basically like the Angels on just a different side of the country. Like they're the bottom of their order is just as good as like the top of some of these other teams' orders, and like you can get exposure to them, and they generally go overlooked.
Yeah, I do like Hanley here too. Matches up pretty well, especially against that changeup Snell throws.
Yeah, he's also an interesting option here, and I think people might be off of him just because his numbers. Because last year he just didn't have a great season last year, and his numbers against lefties dating back to last year, 308 on base percentage, 289 WOBA. That's not typical Hanley numbers.
No, and he had an xWOBA of 391.
Yeah.
Tampa side here, Pomeranz got a start under his belt, wasn't super effective against the A's. But Pomeranz is one of those hit or miss guys. Obviously, there is some strikeout upside here for him. It's just whether he has it or not. This is a guy who's frustrating the roster. He can have those long 30 pitch count innings, which is frustrating, but I don't mind him in GPPs here tonight as like an SP2.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was terrible in that first outing. I mean, he only went 3 2/3, racked up 88 pitches in that time. That's not great, but I mean, he still struck out 7 hitters. He gave up 3 earned runs, so we know the strikeout potential is there for him if he's got the pitches working for him. Goes up against a Rays team that's striking out 25% of the time against lefties. They do have, a 320 WOBA this season against them. They're basically league average against lefties. There are a couple guys like CJ Cron and Daniel Robertson that are a little bit concerning, especially Cron, who continues just to mash and ruin Dylan Bundy's dreams. Little concerning there. And then obviously Brad Miller, for some reason, even though it's a lefty on lefty matchup, has just completely gone ham against Pomeranz in his career. 526 average over the last 5 seasons and 19 at bats against him. But at that price, 7,500, there's a decent amount of strikeout upside if he can actually go deep into this game.
Yeah, I think so. And even at the price, if he gets you 5-6 innings, he gets that 7 strikeout mark, picks up a win here, he'll definitely be paying that off.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Cron was the only bat that I really had interest in. One, just because he's crushed curves, knuckle curves, whatever you want to call his pitch. 354 WOBA, 275 ISO, dating back the last 2 years.
Yeah, he was a guy that I like. I didn't put him in the cheat sheets, but I did whenever I wrote up Pomeranz. I was like, if Pomeranz can get around Cron, he should be fine. I did mention Brad Miller. You do have the BVP if you're into that kind of thing. He's 2,800 on DraftKings. That's really cheap for a guy that's had success in this matchup.
Yep. Moving on here, you got Cincinnati, Minnesota next. Phil Hughes take on Luis Castillo. Um, this game's definitely interesting, I think, from a hitter standpoint. You got Castillo was struggling this year. Phil Hughes, I don't know what to expect out of him tonight.
I expect Phil Hughes to get completely shelled.
But it's baseball. Yeah, I expect it, but I guess for somehow see just him going out there and managing to like limit the Reds despite giving up like 10 base runners.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Not especially not against a lefty heavy lineup, which is what they're going to see. I mean, you're going to get Winker, you're going to get Votto, you're going to get Scooter, you're going to get Shebler, you're going to get Barnhart, Billy Hamilton. Phil Hughes, dating back to last season, 3 home runs per 9 innings allowed to lefties, a 4.48 WOBA allowed, 45.7% hard contact. Give me all the lefties from the Cincinnati Reds, especially Joey Votto, who is heating up. And this is a good park, and Phil Hughes is bad. And I like the Reds lefties in this spot.
And they're underpriced.
Yes.
Like Votto 4-1 is an absolute steal. Scooter Jeanette, huge power, 3,400. Not that these guys are terribly expensive on FanDuel, but these are just huge bargains on DK.
Yeah, Jesse Winker in that leadoff spot, great price for him there. Votto, first base is absolutely loaded today, and it's really, really hard to pick which guy. But like, I love the spot for Votto because I don't know if people are going to catch on to the fact that he's actually heating up. He's hit 2 homers over his last like 3 games. So, or he's 3 homers over his last 3 games. Definitely a good option there. I love Shebler, Barnhart's towards the bottom of that order. I think Barnhart's a very, very interesting power catching option.
Minnesota side, I have some interest here too. You look at Castillo this year alone, because he was obviously very solid last year. But this year, 420 WOBA to lefties, 356 ISO, getting hammered, 43% hard contact rate. Twins are another team that's going to load up a lot of lefties against him. His ground ball rate's down against lefties as well, which was kind of one of the positive things last year. So I don't mind some of these prices on these guys, especially like Kepler and Rosario. Even a Joe Mauer, but kind of like you said, first baseman's kind of loaded here tonight. Where I don't know if I choose Mauer over any of the others there.
Yeah, if you choose Mauer over Votto, Abreu, some of these other first basemen, you deserve to lose money. I say
Mauer double dong tonight. Here we go.
Probably. I don't hate the lefties here. I do like Rosario continues to be underpriced across the industry. 3,400 on DraftKings for a cleanup hitter in a great matchup. Good spot for him. I do like Kepler, Grossman if he's in the lineup. Castro, interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I completely buy into Castillo's struggles against lefties. Like, I don't necessarily think they're as bad as they've been, but like this is still a decent spot to get exposure here against them.
Yeah, like once again, Rosario is my favorite option. I just feel like he grades out well basically against everything, especially the fastball in that range. Obviously, he's throwing a changeup a lot too, and some of these guys like Rosario over 400 WOBA, 283 against the 283 ISO against changeups. Like once again, he's still too cheap for hitting cleanup.
Yeah, he really is. He's a guy that like I don't necessarily mind using against just about any pitcher in baseball at this point.
Yeah. So Oakland, Houston, Dallas Keuchel taking on Sean Manaea. Manaea coming off a no hitter against Boston. I don't have a lot of interest in bats here. I think both these pitchers have some upside here tonight.
I think both of them do. I don't really want to pick on Keuchel, that's for sure. Except for like a guy like Matt Chapman who posted a 571 ISO against 2-seam fastballs last season. He's a great like option in tournaments as like a one-off, but the rest of this athletics team, like I don't necessarily want to pick on Keuchel, but I don't know that I want to use him. Manaea on the flip side is interesting just because the Astros are striking out still a decent amount against lefties. They're 24% this season. He does a great job of limiting contacts. Like, don't hate the spot for him here. Like, I think he's a decent tournament option tonight.
Yeah, I do too. Like, obviously, it is a very right-handed heavy, scary lineup, but they are striking out. I mean, projected lineup here tonight, 23.7% strikeout rate so far against lefties this year. Um, Obviously, Minai's been a guy who has pitched well. I don't mind him in GPPs. Um, I still feel like there is some risk, though.
There's definitely risk. I mean, the Astros are still the Astros. They are still one of the top offenses in baseball. In baseball, they still have a lot of guys that hit lefties extremely well. I mean, you have Altuve, you have Correa, Springer. These guys do profile okay in the spot. Like Yuli Gurriel is the guy that profiled the best, I think, out of all of them. Um, but like I said, I'm still in tournaments at least considering taking pitchers against the Astros going forward, just because they are still striking out a decent amount.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably a little bit higher on Keuchel than you are. I just don't mind. I think 8,800 is a pretty fair price on DK. If you don't want to completely go all the way down and use some of these other pitchers, but I mean, 6 strikeouts in each of the last 3 starts. He's yet to allow over 300 runs. I know he had the rough start, against Minnesota, where he only went 4 innings, but this is a guy who's traditionally pitched better at home. Faced the A's last year, 23 strikeouts over 27 innings, gave up 600 runs, and 4 of them were on the road in 1 start. So he's had some solid games against the A's dating back to last year. And I don't know. I feel like at that price tag, like it's pretty fair. If it was any higher, I wouldn't like him, but I think that's a decent spot. And I kind of like him over like Nola for a little bit in that range.
Yeah, I mean, I do like him over Nola. I think I'd still probably prefer Godley for a little bit cheaper. But like again, in tournaments, he's fine. I don't think Keuchel is ever a guy that you can consider in cash games at this point.
No. Hopefully his walks get under control, which it looks like they have in the last 2 starts.
Yeah, that's the biggest concern. Like, I know this isn't a very patient athletics team, but like if walks are not under control and like he does walk a couple guys, like I mean the Athletics against lefties this season, 42.5% hard contact. Like they are hitting the ball really freaking hard, and that could be problematic if the walks aren't under control.
Yeah, no, I agree. Any bats, like you said, Chapman, any bats on the Houston side here? Like I think Springer's still always a guy that I'll consider against the lefty.
I'll always consider Springer against the lefty. Like I said, Yuli Gurriel profiles extremely well in this spot. I don't hate Altuve. Max Stassi, for some reason, can't get in the lineup against lefties, even though he just obliterates lefties. Yeah.
Chicago, Kansas City next year. Danny Duffy take on Reynaldo Lopez. I wrote up about Lopez, and he's kind of just there's so many options on tonight's slate. Like, it was hard limiting myself to 5, so there's a lot of honorable mentions. But I kind of like Lopez here in this spot. You really got to look at 2018 numbers, I feel, to get a gist of how well he's pitching instead of 2017 and 2018. Obviously, he's been very solid. Hasn't been great against lefties, but hasn't been bad either. Still striking out a decent amount. And obviously, that fastball that we've highlighted a few times on pods already is up from previous years. So I kind of don't mind him. I know the Royals don't strike out a ton, but I can see him having another decent start. And I don't feel like the price is really that bad either.
I do not know what Reynaldo Lopez has to do to get respect from Vegas. And people that strictly build their lineups off of who is the highest Vegas favorite and teams that have the highest projected run totals are going to completely overlook him here. And that is going to be a mistake. Like, he is a guy that has been outstanding this season. Like, I know his game against the Astros was not terribly great. I mean, he only gave up 1 earned run, but he walked 4 batters. Walks have been the issue for him because he does not have a lot of command. But he still has a ton of strikeout upside, especially if his heater is hitting that 100-mile-an-hour mark. Like, it's really hard to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. It doesn't matter who you are. I like him as a tournament option in the spot. He's going to go completely overlooked, and that's still a huge mistake. And Vegas, for the love of God, please give this guy some respect.
Yeah, seriously. I don't really have a ton of interest in any Royals bat. Like, I mean, Moustakas is always a decent one-off, but I feel like on a 14-game slate, I just find my options to just be everywhere else but Kansas City.
Yeah, like Salvador Perez maybe, just because if you're wanting to get some catcher exposure there, but I'm not terribly interested in anyone outside of like Perez and Moustakas.
No, I agree. Definitely have some interest on the White Sox side here. I'm kind of bummed Matt Davidson didn't save his double dong night for tonight, but 286 ISO against lefties this year. Dating back to last year, over 200 ISO. Wellington Castillo, Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson should be leading off here. He's been really solid against lefties. We've seen this matchup here before.
I'm really pissed off at Matt Davidson because when I wrote the cheat sheets yesterday and I had already plugged him in, I was like, Davidson has cooled off this season. And then the dude comes out and puts up a double dog game. So, and like, it's really frustrating because we all know what's going to happen tonight now that everyone's going to use him. But Danny Duffy has been bad. Danny Duffy has just been terrible this season. I love picking on left-handed pitchers with the White Sox. They almost made it in the stacking article. They ended up making honorable mention, but I love Jose Abreu in the spot, 278 ISO, 430 WOBA against left-handed pitching. He's battling flu, but that was a couple days ago whenever he left that game, so hopefully he's feeling a little bit better. I like him in the spot. He's been especially effective against sliders, 353 ISO against it last season. Good spot for him. Wellington Castillo, great spot for him. He homered last night. Tim Anderson, you mentioned. Generally, he has been batting up higher in the order. I think he was in the 2-hole last night. They probably put him in the 2-hole behind Moncada in this spot again tonight. But even if he's at the bottom of that order, he's been mashing lefties dating back to last season. Delmonico, if he's in the lineup, you can consider him. Yolmer Sanchez, another guy you can consider as a value option. Trace Thompson, if he takes the place of Delmonico, if Delmonico doesn't make the lineup because he was scratched yesterday, Klay Thompson's brother could shoot his shot tonight.
He went to Oakland to Chicago real quick. I was kind of bummed. Like, I had to go in and change his team yesterday. I was like, wait, he's in Chicago?
Yeah, he's been there for a little while, but yeah, he's kind of bounced around this season. I mean, he was even here in OKC with the Dodgers for a little while this season.
Yeah, so definitely a White Sox team, all underpriced too.
Yes.
Moving on, New York and LA. You got Luis Severino taking on Andrew Heaney. What are your thoughts on Severino here? Obviously going up against an Angels team that's struggling. I keep finding myself just going to DeGrom over these guys.
Yeah, I find myself doing the same, but this is an Angels team over the last 7 days striking out 25% of the time. Severino is a guy that we know just has some filthy, overpowering strikeout stuff. I mean, he's got an almost 30% strikeout rate dating back to last season. Excellent contact management skills to both sides of the plates. I think because people are going to flock to Kluber, DeGrom, and like Strasburg, like Severino is going to be a very overlooked pitching option. And because he's going against the Angels, and there is this conception that like the Angels are a team that doesn't strike out a ton, which their season-long numbers do suggest that, 19.3%. But again, over the last 7 days, it's 25%. I think there's potential here for him to put up a big game, and like there's not going to be a lot of people on him.
No, I don't think so, just because of the matchup. And he really has just been so dominant. I mean, ground ball rate over 50% dating back to last year, 28% strikeout rate. He's so solid against both sides of the plate, like you've mentioned. Doesn't give up a lot of home run or really power numbers to either side. And he's probably going to face a right-handed heavy lineup.
Yeah, like I put it, his slider to righties is freaking nasty. And there's, depending on who gets in the lineup, there's going to be between 5 and 7 hitters in that lineup that swing at sliders over 15% of the time. And he's throwing that like 43% of the time to righties this season, generating 20% swinging strikes. It's a filthy pitch. And like I said, I think he has upside here.
Yeah, I do too. I have zero interest in any Angels hitters.
I mean, look, it's Mike Trout's still an excellent baseball player. Like, I'll never say no if you want to roster Mike Trout, but like I'm not reaching for anyone from this Angels side.
No, he's 5'5". You want Ohtani's gonna homer tonight.
Probably.
Yankee side of things here going up against a lefty. I definitely don't mind some bats here. You mentioned Stanton. Like obviously his numbers against lefties are just insane. I don't mind really the right-handed bats. Tyler Austin's interesting here too.
He is not interesting because he is suspended.
Oh, that's right. That took so long. Yeah, him and Joe Kelly finally. That's right. Never mind.
But yeah, I still think I think the Yankees are the chalk stack of the night. Like everybody's going to plug in as many Yankee righties as they can because Andrew Heaney is a guy that has given up like 51% hard contact to right-handed hitters dating back to last season, 5.47 home runs per nine. So yeah, the righties are going to be extremely popular. You mentioned Stanton. Obviously, a great spot for him. Dude's posting video game numbers against righties or against lefties. 436 ISO, 468 WOBA, dating back to last season. 17.2% strikeout rate. So that does help. The fact that he is striking out a ton this season. Great spot for him. Aaron Judge, great spot for Judge. Gary the Goat, if you want to roll out some Gary Sanchez, feel free. I do love Aaron Hicks in this spot as a value option. 3,700 on DraftKings. Like he still has an almost 200 ISO against right-handed pitching dating back to last season. Miguel Andujar finally got a price increase. He is now 3,900, and he has cooled off now that they've increased his price. So I still like him in this spot as well, down towards the bottom of that order. Gleyber Torres. If you're right-handed and you're batting for the Yankees, you're in play tonight.
Yeah, you really are. I like the Hicks call one just because he's cheaper, and I don't think he'll be as highly owned as the other outfielders there.
Yeah, I think that's going to – and I think, like, if I'm stacking Yankees in this spot, like, I'm probably doing the bottom of the order like Hicks, Andujar, and Torres and just hoping they go off and can keep up with the Judges and the Stantons.
Yep. Mets Padres, as we've kind of talked about all night. DeGrom pitching here against Clayton Richard. I just like DeGrom here in this spot. Impeco against a Padres team that's just striking out a ton against right-handed pitching this year. 28.4% so far this year. One of the lower implied totals. I just feel like DeGrom's an easy plug and play here.
But the home road splits, Jason.
I don't buy it.
I don't either. I know what the numbers say. In his career, his strikeout rate dips like 5% on the road. His xFIP goes up like from 290 to 335. There are numbers that suggest the home road splits thing is real. I just don't care. Like, this is still a dude with nasty strikeout stuff. We're talking about almost 30% dating back to last season. 22 strikeouts and 188 ERA over his last 3 games. The bullpen has been atrocious, and they've blown the wind for him in all 3 of those games, I believe. Padres strike out 27% of the time against right-handed pitching this season. DeGrom is still one of the top pitching options on the slate.
Yeah, back-to-back 30 DK point games. One of those games was on the road against Atlanta, which is a team that doesn't strike out a ton and is very lefty-heavy.
But the home road split.
And I think a lot of people DeGrom doesn't get the respect he deserves from a crowd. There's a crowd that's kind of anti-DeGrom, and I feel like it's probably because they all used him on that Marlins start. And they're like, I'm done. I'm so done with DeGrom.
I mean,
horrible.
That's probably the case.
Yeah. So I don't have any interest in Padres hitters, do you?
No.
I don't really have interest in Mets here either. Like, I know Richard's obviously been bad, but some of these Mets guys have been awful against, lefties too. Although Cespedes is starting to heat up a little bit over the last few days, I would have some interest in him here. I just don't feel like I need to use Mets here tonight.
I don't feel like I need to either. I mean, Clayton Richard has been really bad. It's like 1.63 whip through his 5 starts this season. His ground ball rate has dipped like 10%. If you want to get exposure, I think you can get away with like Asdrubal Cabrera, 419 on base percentage against lefties dating back to last season. Guy that's really interesting, and I had interest in him before I noticed Xander Bogaerts was 2K on FanDuel, was Ahmed Rosario, who is 2,200 on FanDuel. He's been heating up and against lefties, 235 ISO, 358 WOBA. Decent value option at shortstop. I don't hate Todd Frazier. Wilmer Flores is the typical guy that everyone plays against a lefty. You can feel free to do that. But I think like Ahmed Rosario is probably the guy that I have the most interest in as a value play.
Yeah, I like that call. I think because Cespedes' price is 4,100 down from what he can usually do, and obviously the upside's there. I think he would be my favorite play. You mentioned Flores. He's just at such a loaded first base position tonight.
Oh, did they move him to first base?
Yeah, he's first base now only.
Never mind.
Yeah, it sucks. Anyone else here?
No.
Dodgers, Giants. These have been such horrible fantasy games for a batter standpoint so far this year. Even when bad pitchers come in and pitch against these two teams. You got Derek Holland taking on Hyunjin Ryu. I have a little bit of interest in Ryu on FanDuel because he's so cheap, and I do think there is still some strikeout upside. I won't touch him on DK at that price.
Yeah, it's a price play on FanDuel if you're fading the higher dollar pitchers. Obviously, it is a Giants team that does strike out a decent amount this season, 25.4%. So, I don't necessarily hate it, but I'm still a little bit worried about the struggles that Ryu has had against lefties. I mean, dating back to last season, I know he's been better this year, but dating back to last season, 383 WOBA allowed, 2 home runs per 9. I know this is a good park for pitchers, but some of those numbers are still concerning when you do have some Giants bats in that lineup, like Brandon Belts, Brandon Crawford, Joe Panic, who do actually hit lefties pretty decently in their career.
Yeah, they do. And Belt's the one guy, I feel like we've said it a few times lately when talking pitchers against the Giants, just get around Belt, and then for some reason they don't. Looking at you, Tanner Rourke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely concerning, especially that walk rate. But I mean, that strikeout rate against righties is something that I don't mind looking at. He's definitely a single bullet if you're building multiple lineups, nothing really more.
Yeah, for sure. And there are a couple I mentioned the lefties, but I don't even hate Mac Williamson if he gets in the lineup. I know he strained his neck trying, hitting all those home runs.
Who is it?
Big Mac Williamson. Babe Ruth.
Oh, all right, now I know who you're referencing.
Yeah, Babe Ruth. It literally apparently he literally did strain his neck trying to hit all those home runs and carry the Giants offense.
Yeah, he did. Dodgers bats have been severely disappointing so far this year. Derek Holland, 304 ISO allowed to righties so far this season. I still really like Matt Kemp. I feel like I like Matt Kemp every night, and he's absolutely crushing lefties like he has in his career. And he's below 4K on DraftKings, FanDuel.
Probably not in the player pool.
He's 2.7. So I just feel like he's such a cheap option if you want a guy late.
Yeah, I like Kemp in the spot. He's a guy that I did profile in the cheat sheets. I don't hate using him there. Obviously, Kike Hernandez, 289 ISO against lefties dating back to last year. Great option there. Unfortunately, did they move? Let's see, what did they move? What position do they have him at today? First base, second base. So he's literally
third base on FanDuel.
I outside a catcher and shorts. He might have been shortstop at some point.
He was shortstop once, yeah.
Outside a catcher, he has literally been every position on DraftKings this season.
Oh, man.
And then Grandal, obviously, if you want to use him, I do like the spot for Grandal a little bit too.
Why is Kyle Farmer catcher? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I like Kemp here. I think Chris Taylor's somewhat interesting because he hits sinkers pretty well. But I do prefer Kemp.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, home runs. Who do you got?
Joey Votto and Jason Kipnis.
Ooh, I like it. I'm gonna go Aaron Hicks. Then I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go JD Martinez.
I can dig it. Hopefully that game plays.
It should, right?
Yeah, I think it's listed as yellow at the moment.
Oh, yellow, whatever. All right, that's it for us. Everyone have a good weekend. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com, tools, content, everything for baseball. And we are wrapping up NBA if you're still playing NBA this weekend.
Yeah, I believe we're done with NBA completely now that everything is pretty much onto the second round.
Yeah, thank God. So
been a long season.
It has. So that's it. We'll see you guys Monday.
Good luck tonight.